Hello, everyone, and welcome to the March edition of the Airshow podcast. We have a great lineup for you this month. We also have an international student that we're going to talk to about his interest in aviation and how he came to be here at the Flight Center. As usual, we will have our Canadian aviation news segment as well as our Meet the Staff segment. Before we get started, however, with our manned aviation segments, I'd like to talk a little bit about RPAS. So, Transport Canada recently released the What We Heard document, which is a document they will release every once in a while with input from different stakeholders and organizations and individuals outside of the government realm who input their opinions on some of the potential new regulations coming out. This is an interesting read for any of you who actually are involved in flying drones. This particular What We Heard mostly focused on the Beyond Visual Line of Sight regulations coming up in April 2025, which we are currently developing a program for. And it is an interesting read. A lot of people made relevant contributions, and some not so much. But generally, it was a worthwhile document. It certainly showed the opinions of people who are in the industry or even flying recreationally. So I think everybody who's involved with drones should take some time to have a look at the document, read through it, and get an indication of what's coming in the future with regards to RPAS in Canada. That document and many other interesting documents from Transport Canada is available on their website in a PDF format, so you can download it to your computer and read it at your leisure. Just as an FYI, we will soon be starting a dedicated RPAS podcast, and that'll talk about everything drones. We'll have, like this show, special guests who are involved in the industry or in the training side of things, and we're going to talk about everything important to you as you're getting started, either as a recreational drone pilot or perhaps a professional drone pilot. And I'll be joined by Justin Quinsnell, who is actually a former student here in our RPAS program, but also a professional drone pilot now in Northern Ontario. Justin has some really interesting perspectives on the industry, and he'll talk about how he got involved, and we're going to talk about regulatory bodies and regulations coming into effect and how that affects the industry as a whole. So we're looking forward to doing that. And we'll let everybody know when the first podcast is coming out. A little bit of Brampton Flight Center news. We're all excited. Our new Cessna 172S is coming online, hopefully in the very near future. And we hope that, again, this will help to minimize the congestion that we currently have with regards to getting aircraft for our students. And some sad news this month in our podcast. Unfortunately, one of our members and his family was killed in a tragic plane crash in Tennessee. I'm sure many of the members here have heard about it already. And I did know Victor a little bit. He was a really wonderful guy, and he will definitely be missed. He was a real aviation enthusiast, and he loved to fly his plane. The crash is under investigation. What we do know right now is that the aircraft suffered an engine failure and crashed several miles short of the airport in Tennessee. So welcome back to the Airshow podcast. Today we are fortunate enough to have one of our international students here to interview and tell us all about his history here at the Brampton Flight Center and generally his history and interest in aviation. Good morning, Arjun.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we have you in here today. We want to talk a little bit about your experience here at the Brampton Flight Center, how you came to be here and why us, as well as a little bit about why you got started in aviation It's interesting choice for people. Not
Mhm.
everybody obviously gravitates toward a career down that field. So let's ask you about how you came to be, first of all, interested in aviation at all.
Okay. Yeah. So just the beginning of where it all started. I was born into an airline family, as one would say. My father works as an aircraft engineer for Emirates in Dubai. So being born and raised in Dubai, UAE, we were about 2 hours close from home. So we would travel at least once a year back to India, where we'd go to visit family. But usually on these trips, what would happen is my dad would usually take me into the cockpit every time we'd fly, and just before the pre-flight, I'd go meet the pilots, the first officer. They'd be very happy to welcome us onto the flight deck. And these was the A330 and A310, I believe, is what Emirates had back then. But yeah, it started off, and then of course Dad was an engineer, so he'd always be on flight duties. He'd be sent by Emirates to different countries where they had aircraft on ground or aircraft with issues, and he'd have to go there to fix those, aircraft and bring it back. Yeah, back then he went to many unique destinations for someone like me, places like say Berlin or Frankfurt, Toulouse in France, Paris as well. So yeah, that was basically the beginning of it.
So you got the bug at a very early age then,
It was, yeah, at like rough.
because you were immersed in it to some degree. Your dad was at AME, so obviously lucky to get on the flight deck at all. So I'm sure looking at all that kind of said, "Wow, that looks interesting."
Yes, yeah.
So as you get older, you obviously said, you know, maybe that's the career I want to go down to. So did you have family support for that? A lot of people, hey, I want to be a pilot. Their family goes, I'm sorry, you want to be a what?
I believe in the beginning, like I think it was my parents. I honestly did not in the initial stages. I did not have the bug for the aviation. Like it was good
Okay,
to be a pilot. It felt nice
right.
as a career path. But for me, initially, it was either a lawyer or something like an office job is what I was thinking, where I'd be at home most of the time,
Okay.
or just adventure in some way, like maybe a travel guide, etc. However, I was studying for law in the UK for about a year, and before that, I had joined the flight school. So I had the bug, and eventually, I was like, law is not the career for me. I still have that bug of aviation. I'd like to see where it leads me, and that's when I joined the flight school in the UK to see where it goes.
So that's interesting. You're not the first person I've interviewed actually who started in another career. One of our other students, Jocelyn Terrio, she was pointed towards being a doctor,
Right.
right? And went completely 180 and became a flight attendant.
Mhm.
And then, excuse me, moved on to thinking about getting a career in aviation. I always find it interesting. A lot of people start as something else and kind of flip over at some point to that.
Yeah, I think like personally, the reason why I didn't want to go for a law job is in the end, like I just noticed, it's a 9 to 5, and I was thinking it would be nice, but honestly, it wasn't for me. And because I had the experience of going to flight school, training for my PPL at that time was just a hobby flying thing. I enjoyed the freedom of just sitting in the plane, putting a headset on, starting the engine, and
Right.
then it's just you in the plane.
So once again, it didn't start out being a career path for at the beginning. It was kind of just for recreational flying for fun.
That is correct. Yeah.
That's interesting. So Arjun, you're an international student, so obviously you didn't start your flight training here at the Brampton Flight Center. So tell us about how that happened. You initially started, I guess, in the UK.
Yeah, that is correct. So just before joining university, I took a gap year when I was 18 years old, just to see, have this, just to see what flying is like. And I applied to a flight school. I believe in the US you would call it a Part 61, which is
Right. Yeah.
like a mom and pop,
Yeah.
flight
Small
school.
operation. Yeah.
Yeah. So I applied to a flight school up north in North Yorkshire of England called Sherburn Aero Club. It was in the middle of a village called Sherburn in Elmet. So they had approximately six Piper PA-28s, three Robins, and three 83s, which I believe is a Czech aircraft.
Yes.
I was on the PA-28. The reason I chose that is because I was thinking if I become, if I get my PPL, I'd love to take my parents. So I'd rather have the
Right.
four seats rather than the
Yeah.
two seats.
More spacious.
More space, and yeah. So starting in the UK, it was an interesting experience with the location of the UK. It's an island country. It's between the continent and the Atlantic Ocean, so you get the worst of all the weather.
Yeah.
And the the best weather we had, which I went for my solo cross country, that was 3,000 feet AGL clouds, and for us that was like
That's a good day.
that's a really good day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, 3,000 feet AGL. Weather wise, I learned a lot of unique flying experiences, especially about flying in the rain. Flying at bad weather circuits is a specific term we use in the UK, where you put in two stages of flaps or 20 degrees of flaps, 70 knots indicated airspeed, and you do a circuit, but your pattern's not rectangular.
Right,
It's
right.
very close to the runway, and you have to maintain a
It's very
visual
tight.
contact.
Yeah.
I believe in Canada, it's referred to as a non-precision approach, or
Right.
a
Yeah.
localizer approach would be the same thing as what
Same
we
thing.
would
Yeah.
do. So yeah, so flying in the UK, I gained those skills, and it kind of helped me when I came to Canada. Reason I chose Canada out of all the places is I heard about the flying experiences in Canada, how the country is so vast that east side, west side, north, you can get different ecosystems, to say the least. So you could have the fiercest of winter, or the fiercest of like the British Columbia Isles of weather-wise.
Right.
And I chose Brampton because I had read online, and it came with good reviews. It stated that this is one of the flight schools that has an integrated ATPL program. At that point, I wanted to get it done with, in a sense, something fast track, something with a curriculum, a syllabus, something that I knew that these are the flights I have to do. This is what the program would look like. And yeah, I applied to the Brampton Flight Center. I believe I was speaking with Kathy when I applied in 2020. This was in the middle of COVID as well.
Right. Yes.
And I was in, I believe, correspondence with Kathy. Yeah, but again, for 2 years I had to wait because Canada wasn't accepting any international students in general. They had stopped all
Yeah. During the COVID,
visa
everything was shut
processes.
down. Basically, it was a different world
It was,
everywhere.
yeah. And then 2022, I believe, or 2023, January is when the application opened up again. And I had applied then, and I was speaking with Sydney. And the process was very straightforward. Sydney was, very helpful from the beginning, still is right now. And it was very straightforward. They gave us an entire like welcome package of what we need, what's the information that's required, documents required. Yeah, and I applied by, I believe, January, and I want to say that I had my interview very early in January as well, and I believe I got my confirmation, like admission letter, by Feb.
Right. So the process for you seemed pretty smooth.
It was really straightforward for Brampton, and then when I applied to the Canadian immigration, again, I got my student visa within the month.
All right. So you have about a year left in your program. So far, I'd like to ask you about how you feel it's going. Is there anything really positive you feel that the program offers, or anything you think we could probably do a little better?
Yeah, currently right now I am, yeah, I've got a year to go. I finished my commercial written, and we've just started our winter survival ground school. We are working towards the commercial flight test, and then INRAT, which will come in hopefully next month, based on when Aerocourse wants to come in. For the positives of the program, since I've joined back in July 2023, I'd like to say I've never experienced a flight school syllabus or program such as this. It was very fast paced, but at the same time, it was very precise, unique in the sense that we knew what we had to do, we knew how to get there, and we knew what our lesson plans would be, what our flights would be for. It wouldn't be, go up in the sky, do a few stalls, and come back. We actually had of exercises for each lesson plan of this is what you're going to be, flying about or honing your skills on. Say, let's
Right.
it's taxiing, ancillary controls, stalls, steep turns, short field, soft field takeoff. Usually in the Part 61, such as when I go back to the UK, it would be okay. The instructor, we'd talk to the instructor, and he'd be like, okay, you've done this, this, and this. Let's go up and try doing this. So I prefer doing the syllabus method that Brampton has in the IATPO. It gives me an idea of, how far along I am in the program and what I can work on next.
So you're meeting those milestones as you go along.
That is correct, yeah. Another thing that I like, and I understand, that there's a bit of a debate about, I enjoy the number of planes we have, 25. I believe we have 26 now that Lima Lima Zulu is going to join us next month.
Hopefully, very
Hopefully.
soon.
Yeah. So 26 planes, the 182 as well, so that makes it 27. And yeah, I enjoy the planes. They're always available. Instructors are always approachable. The environment's really nice. We can always go up to the admin, dispatch, instructors. I can even come up to you in the pilot store, and we can have a conversation. If I have any questions, there's a lot of people to talk to.
So the support is there when you need it.
Absolutely. And in the beginning, I understand we met Scott Chaco. I believe the entire class was very nervous, very afraid of approaching him.
Right.
But I believe eventually, we all warmed up to him. And
So after you complete your program here at Brampton Flight Center, obviously you must have some plans for the future in aviation. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about that right now. So first of all, what are your plans? What would you like to fly? Where would you like to fly? And tell us about those long-term goals.
so at the current moment, there's still a year to go. I still haven't exactly defined or decided where I want to be working or what I want to be working straight out of the door of Brampton. I would enjoy being a flight instructor. I believe I could make a good teacher.
Right, right.
I'm good at explaining. However, I still wish to learn more, and I think a good teacher is one that also is a student.
Absolutely, yeah.
Regarding, other options, I could either go up north, flying. I'd love to do air taxi or, as you know, the milk run in Alaska.
Right, yeah.
So going, giving back to communities, flying, doctors or commodities to villages that aren't reachable by road or rail or any of those,
The other method, yeah,
any other method.
absolutely, yeah.
Um, Otherwise, yeah, it's basically in the end, I like to see myself sitting left seat in an airline, hopefully a legacy or a major airline. And talking about favorite airplanes, I'd love to see myself sat in the left seat of a 380. If
So
it's still,
you're a big Airbus fan, obviously.
it's easy to fly.
Well, that's true. Yes, everything is definitely computerized these days. It's all glass, right? So you are thinking maybe long term of staying in Canada?
It depends on what the job prospects are like.
Right.
Eventually, I'd love to go back to Dubai. That's where the family is, and
Right, yeah,
that's
obviously, yeah.
that's where I feel at home at. It just depends whatever the methods or the routes I can take to eventually move to the
get
Middle
there.
East.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Arjun, for coming in today. It was a great interview. We enjoyed having you. And all the best to you with your program and your future career, sir.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
So today for our Meet the Staff Member segment, we have Parminder Bogle. Parminder is an instructor here at the Brampton Flight Center, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about how she got involved in aviation and her background, and what she does here at the Brampton Flight Center, and how it relates to you as a student. So thank you for joining us this morning, Parminder. I appreciate you being here. And today we want to talk to you a little bit about your career here at the Brampton Flight Center. First of all, how long have you been an instructor here?
I've been an instructor here for about 2 years now, close to 2.5, I think, at this point.
So 2.5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoying it?
I am. It's a good balance between the hustle and bustle of summer flying and the lack of flying in winter because of the weather, but it has its perks because you get to really sit down with your students and help them out where they really need it on the ground.
So you're doing a lot of classroom work in the winter time.
Yeah, one-on-one stuff that I find that students, especially nervous students in large class settings, they're not too comfortable, so they find it a lot easier to understand concepts and ask questions comfortably one-on-one.
One-on-one is always
I was
a
the
better
same way.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So how did you come to be at the Brampton Flight Center? I mean, there's lots of flight schools out there, obviously. What was it that made you choose us to do your flight training? Because I think you've said that you've done all of your training here at the center.
I have. I've done from PPL to my instructor rating, multi-IFR, all here. I was looking for something that had a pace to it, and the other flight schools were a lot smaller, just based on where they were. And Brampton was referred to me by somebody I knew outside of the club. And the first visit here, everyone was welcoming. They were willing to answer questions. They had the answer to all of my questions.
Right.
Really, really good guidance on where to start and the different kinds of options depending on, I guess, my personal life. So whether it was the college AGPL program or a self-paced.
Right. So you did self-paced, yes?
I did self-paced.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you have a busy life
Mm-hmm.
and a lot going on. I think you said you had another job at one point as well.
Yeah, I had 2 jobs during my flight
jobs,
training.
wow.
So it was school and working. That was my life.
Just to keep it all going.
Exactly. But I wouldn't regret it. I think for someone who didn't have much of an aviation background, it worked in my favor.
So that brings me to the question, why aviation? You're a female, women in aviation, not a usual career path, as I've talked about in the past with other female pilots. What was it that kind of brought you to that trajectory as a career path?
Exposure is the biggest thing. I did not have exposure to flying in any way. You're younger, you'd catch yourself looking at planes, but it was never a thought.
Right.
I can never do that. How do I even begin? Like, no, there's no one for me to ask.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't know it until you've tried it. Not necessarily I have tried it and that's how I got into it. But it was honestly, I was on vacation. We were going from island to island, and the second island we were traveling to was Nevis, and their airport was very small. So we were in like this otter, I believe, Twin
Right,
Otter.
Twin
It was
Otter,
so
yeah.
long ago. No cockpit door. So I ran to the front. As soon as he took off, I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like, it was just something you needed to see. It was perfect timing because I just, paid all my tuition for university.
There you go. So,
So-
did you start out with a different career path? That you had something in mind when you went to university? Or?
I was kind of going between physio, like a sports therapist,
Oh, okay.
or a veterinarian. Because I
That's a
also
little
have,
different. Yeah, that's
Very, right?
definitely a 180.
but both are still parts of my interests outside of flying.
Oh, really? Okay.
And again, once I saw it, I was like, why didn't I think of this earlier? But I guess
Right.
that was, I was supposed to be there at that time, and I saw it take off, and all I saw was oceans and islands, and I was like, this is what I want to do.
So the view got you.
The view got me, and not only like there was no cockpit door, so it was just front and center. I saw
Right there
everything
in front of you.
I
And
saw him do everything, and I
Yeah.
was like, this is amazing.
yeah, it's definitely an amazing career choice. You get to travel eventually if you decide to get into international. You get to travel the world and see things that you would never have an opportunity perhaps to see otherwise.
Yeah, that's
So-
the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we talked about you. You are a female. You're in aviation. How is your family in terms of support for this as a career for you? It's not, again, you are of Indian descent. Again, not a normal career path for young Indian women.
I was lucky enough to have 100% support from my dad, my mom, my sister, and my brother. The people that really needed, who I really needed to support me. My mom was concerned not for any other reason other than the safety aspect of it. Of course, when I think a few years before I decided, flying is it, I used to watch Mayday all the time. So my
okay.
mom's only idea, minus her flights from, from wherever she needed to go in terms of India or Germany, her only, I guess, representation of flying was Mayday.
Not the best source to
No. So she'd like look at me and be like, are you sure this is what you want to do? But it was just for like the fact of just safety. And, it got to the point where my mom trusted it enough that I got to take her flying when I got licensed.
Oh,
So
she actually has gone up with you.
she has. I've taken my dad for Father's Day, my mom for
Right.
Mother's Day,
That's great.
and then my brother. And I did city tours for all of them. And then when I was time building, I took them to Aurelia for lunch. So I think
Okay.
my mom she understands the love for it now.
Right,
And she
right.
also knows that it's safe.
Yeah.
So,
She
but I was-
understands your passion that you have and that this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was very lucky to have 100%
Yeah,
support.
sadly, not
And
everybody has that full support of their families in terms of
yeah,
taking this up as a career, but it's fortunate that you did.
I
That's great.
did. And I think they're not surprised because it follows in line with my personality of doing the complete opposite of what they want.
And sometimes that's not a
Right?
bad thing, right? Yeah,
Right?
for sure. So currently you're an instructor here at the Brampton Flight Center, but probably that's not your end goal. So I'd like to ask you a little bit about what you see as your future in aviation in terms of jobs, what you think those prospects are as a female in aviation, and what do you think is maybe your favorite airplane you'd like to fly?
Okay, so after instructing, I would of course love to do something a little bit more local in terms of where I stay, my home base,
Right,
whether that's Porter or Jazz. I know Jazz, they even, based you in Vancouver, which I think is okay. It's still close to home. And I think the ultimate goal is to do international flights.
right.
I have peaked at Emirates
Have you?
requirements.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, I think it's always good to know like what different airlines want and if it's something I can achieve. I
Oh,
say, why not?
absolutely. If you fit into what they're looking for, yeah.
Yeah. But you know, Oakville's my home in like the only way I want. So I would always
Right.
come back to what I would call home and to my family. In terms of let me see. In terms of an aircraft, I would love to fly the Dreamliners. They're beautiful aircrafts. Flown in them myself, and I've got the chance to look through the cockpit. The
Right.
pilots
Yeah.
are so kind, and they love when you come up to the
Oh,
front. They I
absolutely.
think they
Yeah.
miss it.
Yes, because it's not normally done anymore for
Yeah.
security reasons, obviously.
Yeah, but they're like, you know what? As long as the plane's on the ground, feel free to come on up. Just ask somebody. I was like, I will do that every single time. But yeah, that's kind of the game plan. Porter and Jazz. I know Jazz is hiring a lot
Yes.
more right now, actually.
Yeah,
So
we had a
that would be
jazz
a
pilot in the December, I believe it was, podcast, and he was saying, "Good grief, if you know anybody, like tell them to apply because they're canceling flights because of
oh
lack
man.
of pilots."
Okay.
So apply, apply, apply. That's what he said to do. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been telling all of my people I know here is like as soon as you have the qualifications that they're looking for,
Yeah.
which are much easier these days than
Yeah.
they were
For
years
sure.
ago. Uh, Apply for the job, and you have definitely a good chance. Porter is opening up new routes as well, as I've talked about before. They just opened up one to LAX
Oh,
not
beautiful.
long ago.
It's great.
So, yeah, it's definitely the right time to be in this industry. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to do Porter as well. I've flown Porter just go see my sister. And I think that's the biggest thing about flying is it's bigger than just flying from point A to B. It's bringing people together, taking I don't know, taking a doctor to where he needs to be to perform
Right.
surgery. It's so much bigger than just I need to go somewhere or
Yeah.
a vacation.
There's always some purpose in there, right?
Exactly. And I would love to, at some point in my life, take my flying skill and be able to do that. Rescue dogs, huge with me. I would love to fly up rescue dogs to get medical
Right.
attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because there's an article I did for the Canadian Aviation News. There's a bunch of pilots who got involved in turtle conservation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard about that or not, but they were actually, some of the turtles were brought here to our airport and then airlifted to either medical attention that they needed or to a new place to live that was safer for them,
I
that
would
type of
love
thing. Yeah,
I
it's
would love to
awesome.
do that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Pilots are really caring people, a lot of them, and will do anything they can. This was all volunteer. It was great.
Yeah.
You've been an instructor for a few years now. What do you find students tend to struggle with most during their flight training, especially obviously PPL when they're first getting started and everything is new? And I think a lot of people come into this not realizing just how much focus and how much time you really have to put into it to make it work effectively for you?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is the balance between your ground school and your flying. They truly do go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Of course, sometimes circumstances don't allow it to go hand in hand. But if you can really focus on at least the flight theory, for example, before you start flying. So start that ground school, do the first 5 classes so you get familiar with just parts of the aircraft,
Right.
and really spend understanding, like I said, just the parts of the aircraft, and that'll help you so much more when you start flying. And I know flying's so excited and all you want to do is get into the plane, but it helps if you know what the parts are.
What everything is
Yeah,
for, how to
exactly.
use it properly. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. It's truly your foundation to everything. And I find that a lot of students just want to fly, 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 and now they're spending time playing catch up within their flight lessons, but also on the ground because they're missing pieces of information. So if you can balance that to if you can balance the ground knowledge to your flying, it'll really, really, like, I can't even emphasize enough how much it'll benefit you. Another thing I actually notice is the minimum requirements for ground school, for example.
Right.
1 round of ground school, they think they're done. I'm like, no, do it again.
Yeah.
Do it again, do it again, do it again as much as you want because you have access to it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially if it's a different instructor for a class.
Right.
They always add information that you could probably find useful.
Slightly different perspective. Yeah.
Exactly.
At times, yeah.
And that's the one thing I noticed, at least as a PPL student. I attended the ground schools twice. I think twice should be the minimum because you do your first round, it's all overwhelming, and then you study it, and then you do the second round, you're like, okay, this
Then
makes sense now.
you start to actually get it, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
For sure.
So as exciting as flying is, make sure you know your ground stuff. Like, it is so beneficial.
Absolutely. Fantastic advice, Paminder. Thank you so much for coming in today and talking to us. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for
and
having me.
thank you for your insights into helping students move forward in their studies. And hopefully you will have a fantastic career in this industry.
Thank you.
And look forward to hearing from Captain Bogle one of these days.
For sure. I'll email you, Richard.
I look forward to it.
I'll send you an email. I'm ready.
I would be on that aircraft. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. You too.
Anyone listening who is thinking about being a pilot, we actually offer what's called an introductory flight. The introductory flight is a mini first lesson of sorts, and the flight itself is just under a half hour, and you'll get to take the controls of the aircraft during that time. Also, after your flight, you'll be able to talk to the instructor who took you up, and they will be able to give you all the relevant information on what you need to do to get signed up and learn to fly. Maybe you're thinking of it as a career or even just as a recreational pilot. We can help you with that. And the cost for the flight is $169.50. That includes HST, and all of those flights can be purchased on our website, as well as a booking request form that you're required to fill out to set up a time and date for your flight. Be aware that we are very busy here at the airport, and it's probably very advisable to book well out in advance for a time and date for that particular type of flight. Unfortunately, at this time, we're not able to offer you any kind of sightseeing flights. The only flight that is available right now is, as I said earlier, the introductory flight. So if you're looking for more information, you can certainly give us a call, 905-838-1400, extension 214, and someone will be able to give you more information regarding that particular type of flight. So I hope everybody has been enjoying this month's podcast so far. Right now, I'd like to get into a little bit of Canadian aviation news. Porter Airlines is apparently expanding their routes again, making the announcement that they are bringing more of their elevated economy experience to Newfoundland travelers this summer. This includes launching the only nonstop Ottawa-St. John's flight on the market and the introduction of Deer Lake as a new destination with service to Halifax. Also in the news, to nobody's surprise, a shortage of pilots is making travel chaos in Canada even worse. It seems the larger airlines are doing most of the hiring, and other airlines are complaining that there's not enough pilots left over for their needs as well. With COVID happening and a lot of extreme weather events, certainly the travel industry has had its issues over the last few years. It is definitely in a recovery state right now. However, the lack of qualified pilots is presenting some pretty large problems for the airlines at this time, and the hiring frenzy is definitely on. So, on the positive side, certainly it is a great time to be a pilot in training or a pilot ready to go out and find a job in the industry. So, whether you're a member here, a student, or perhaps just visiting our airport, feel free to come by and stop at our restaurant. They have a fantastic menu there and great service, and you can enjoy your time while you're there watching aircraft take off and land. So, special events coming up at the Brampton Flight Center. We have the Wings Banquet 2024. We hope you'll be able to join us for a well-deserved afternoon celebration and recognition for those students who graduated in 2023. And it's going to take place on Sunday, April 14th, 2024, at the Royal Ambassador in the Greenhouse at 1300 hours for beverages and hors d'oeuvres. And the ceremony will actually be at 1400. The address of the Royal Ambassador is 15430 Innis Lake Road in Caledon, Ontario. And we do have an RSVP deadline of March 31st, 24. So make sure you get your RSVPs in there. And you can purchase your tickets online through the Humphreys Pilot Shop website. And if you would like to make a donation to help people come to the banquet, you can do that also through Humphreys Pilot Shop website. If you need any more details on the Wings Banquet, you can certainly contact Rita or Kathy. Last up on the podcast today, we have Anand Prasad. Anand is a pilot, formerly at Jazz, but now moved up to Air Canada. He also used to work at the pilot shop with me many years ago. And today we're going to talk to Anand about his career and the path he's gone on to get where he is today. Welcome, Anand. So I just wanted to thank everybody who's been tuning into our podcast, and it is appreciated. And be sure to tell everybody else that you know that's involved in aviation here at the center or even interested in aviation to tune in. We definitely have a great show coming up in April again, and I'm going to keep a little bit of those details quiet for now. But we look forward to seeing you again in the springtime. There's been virtually no snow this year, so we look forward to some green happening soon out there. So be sure to keep your blue side up and have a wonderful week.
Attention passengers, we've now reached our destination. We hope you enjoyed the flight and have a nice day.